How many of you believe that God really calls us, that He really speaks to us? How many of you, when going through a difficult time, actually hear God speaking? Okay, well, I'm really happy because when I'm going through a tough time, sometimes my ears are so closed up, I cannot hear God speak. Louis wakes up screaming one night. His hands are gripped around his wife's neck, throttling and squeezing the life out of her. He straddled over her in a rage, in a fury, dreaming that the person in his dream is the person whose neck he's squeezing. And in the midst of this dream, he's dreaming that he's grabbing the neck of his prison guard that had tortured him relentlessly for 3 to 5 months, every single day. And he wakes up, or he's dreaming that he finally has the prison guard. His name was, they nicknamed him the Bird, because if they called them by name, they would know who they were talking about. So each prison guard got a nickname, and this prison guard's name was the Bird. And he was dreaming that he was strangling the Bird, but as he's screaming and strangling, he wakes up and realizes he's sitting over his wife, pinning her down and squeezing the life out of her. I can't imagine going through a period in my life of 3 to 4 months where every single day someone is looking for you to torture and make your life an absolute misery. Louis endured his time of torture as a prisoner of war in the prison camps during the Second World War, but the torture that he endured affected him so much that the only way he could sleep, the only way that he could not dream about the Bird, was to drown himself in alcohol. Drink himself to a drunken stupor where eventually he would pass out because of not necessarily fatigue, but just he was so inebriated he would just pass out. It's the only way he could get the Bird out of his head. Alcohol became his friend and the means of forgetting a torturous past. Have you ever been so overwhelmed in life that you have to find a way of shutting out the world, numbing everything so that you don't have to endure it anymore? 3 to 5 months is not a long time if you think about it. But how about 3 to 5 years? That's a different story, right? That's like a high school career almost. How about not just necessarily being tortured, how about being hunted for your life for 3 to 5 years? Where whoever's hunting you, if they find you, will slit your throat, stab you, do whatever. Can you imagine running for your life for 3 to 5 years? Book of Samuel, of the first Samuel, we read of King Saul relentlessly pursuing David. When we read the scriptures, we don't necessarily read a time frame. But from 1 Samuel chapter 1 up until 1 Samuel chapter 25, this is a period about 3 to 5 years is taking place during this time. And for this period of time, David is fleeing constantly from Saul. And when we get to 1 Samuel 25, David is in the wilderness, running for his life, fearing that anybody could snitch on him. Now, in high school, do you guys like snitches? You do something bad and what did Joshua say? Stitches for snitches, right? Okay, so it's an old saying. So stitches for snitches. Well, we just call it tattletaling back in South Africa. But snitches for stitches, or stitches for snitches. Can you imagine? Anybody could turn you in. Anybody could turn David in and say, I know where he is, and Saul would be on him. And David's in the wilderness. His strength is gone. His ability to keep his cool is kind of fraying at the ends. And he's hungry. Maybe he's hangry. Would be a more modern day term. And he hears about a guy who is rich. The Bible describes him as very rich. He has 300 or 3,000 sheep. He has 1,000 goats. And I guess in today's terms, that's not very rich, but I guess biblically speaking, that was very rich. And the Bible describes him as very rich, describes how many sheep he's got, how many goats he's got, but then it says something else. His name was Nabal. And the Bible says his name means he's a fool. Now, I don't know how you get rich and being a fool at the same time. It kind of like doesn't make sense. Maybe he was business savvy, but socially a fool. Did not know how to relate to people, did not know how to speak to people, did not know how to treat people well. And so hence he's described as a fool. And so this fool is rich. David's in the wilderness. He hears that this fool Nabal, that his shepherds are beginning to shear their sheep. And David thinks, well, this is maybe not a bad time to go and find out from Nabal whether he would not be willing to give us some food because we're hungry. And so David sends a few young representatives to him, and he gives them a speech to say. He says to them, David tells them, he says the following, speak to Nabal, say the following, peace be to you, peace to your house, and peace to all that you have. That's an amazing way to approach somebody. Hey, you're amazing. I hope you have a wonderful time at school. I hope that your grades just like are blowing up and you're getting full A's and everybody likes you. I think that would fall on nice ears and that the response would be kind. But I guess Nabal was dumb. Nabal was a fool. Because his response to David's men is disrespectful. He says, Who are you? Who are you, David? I hear you are the son of Jesse. You are a servant to Saul. Thanks so much. You are a servant to Saul, and all this was a slap in the face of David. David comes respectfully and says, peace be to you, to your family, to your business, everything. I hope that God blesses you, is what David is saying. And Nabal says, like, who are you? What should I do? Why should I listen to you? You are an absolute nobody. Actually, you're a servant. You're fleeing from Saul. And I should probably turn you in, is what Nabal is saying. And so, it's interesting, David's response. His soldiers come back, and his soldiers give the response. David's first thing is strap on your swords. He sees blood. That's all he sees. He's just out to go and get this guy Nabal, because how dare you treat me the way you've treated me? How dare you speak to me like this? When in actual fact, and some of the commentators will suggest that David's request of sheep was almost like a gangster. I've treated you well, therefore you owe me some food. Commentators will say that when David went to Nabal asking for food, he was saying to them, I've treated your shepherds well. I did not take any food from them. I protected them from other enemies. Therefore, you owe me food. And if you don't owe me food, I'm going to come at you. Commentators will suggest that, but I don't interpret it that way. I see it as David saying, hey, we've lived among your shepherds. We've done nothing wrong to them. My guys are hungry. We could have taken food from them, but we haven't. We are doing the decent thing and coming to you respectfully. But now, Nabal has caused David to be mad. He sees blood. I think that Louis and David were in a similar situation. See, the prison guard, the bird, had destroyed Louis. The prison guard had taken Louis's humanity. He had humiliated Louis. I mean, if we read the book, and if you want to read the book, it's called Unbroken. Correct. You read how this guy treated Louis through this ordeal in prison camps. Humiliated, beaten, lost his dignity, lost his humanity, if you please. All Louis had for the bird was hatred. All David had for Nabal was hatred. All Louis wanted to do in his time period under the rule of the bird or the reign of the bird was to kill him. That's all he wanted to do. They had gone so far as to somehow, I don't know how they did this, but they would go on these hard labor things, and somehow they had devised a plan of bringing in a rock big enough that when you tied it to a man with rope, that he would not be able to swim. So their plan was to bring little strands of rope or string, tie them together, and when the bird was in the room or they were able to get hold of the bird, they would jump him, tie him down with this rope, tie the rope around the rock, and then toss the rock out the window with the bird strapped to it, and eventually drown the bird in the river. This was their plan. Louis just wanted to kill this guy. The end of the war, Louis makes it back to the United States. And all he can think about is killing the bird. He wanted to get revenge. It's what drove his life. He wanted to get back to Japan. So Louis planned year after year after year, I'm going to get back to Japan. I'm going to hunt the bird down, and I'm going to end his life. David is like, how can Nabal treat me this way? I am going to go to him. I'm going to end his life and teach him a lesson. Can you imagine being in that state of mind? That state of fear that everything drives you to one end. I remember at school, I went to a public school, and at the public school they had a lot of foreign students come in, and this is not picking on any particular international nation, but it was a lot of Japanese students that came in, and the gymnasium was out of bounds one day at school, and Back in South Africa, we have what we call prefects. They, like the Student Body Association, they're the ones that kind of look over the students and make everything, work well. And your fellow students would vote you in as a prefect or as a head boy or a head girl. And so I was a prefect in high school. And so because I was a prefect, I had certain sways of authority and responsibilities that teachers would lean upon us to do and communicate back to our friends. And so one teacher came to me and said to me, Sean, there's a bunch of Japanese students out in the gymnasium. They're playing basketball. They're not supposed to be there. It's out of bounds. Please take them all to the office. Back in the day, the school believed in corporal punishment. There was a cane, and it was not spared. The headmaster back in that day, his name was Mr. Spears. We actually called him Father Christmas because he had this big, long, white beard that hung down to his belly button. And if you looked carefully in his beard, you could see breakfast kernels in his beard. And so we teased and said that he would save those for a snack later on. The deputy head principal his name was Mr. Beeden, and he was a swimmer. His favorite stroke in swimming was butterfly. I mean, Stan, you've got big shoulders, and I wish I had big shoulders, but this guy, he was bigger than what you are. I mean, he had huge shoulders. And so these students, I think there was 10 or 15 of them, they were taken from the gymnasium to the office, and they were now going to get corporal punishment because they were disobeying, that the gymnasium was out of bounds. And so I don't know what happened. I did what my duty was. I took them to the office and I left it over there. But the result of that was that these students and their friends turned on me. So much so that I was scared to go to school. So much so that I was scared that when I was at school, that if I had to go to the bathroom or to the restroom, that somebody may be there and beat me up. The day after they were taken to the office, I was walking up the stairwell to one of the classrooms, and I was walking to my classroom, and then all of a sudden I was surrounded by 7 or 8 of these guys. And they would kind of walk at me and push me into a corner. So much so that I was walking backwards, not able to kind of see what was going on, and tripped over suitcases that were lying in the corridor because I was scared because of what they were going to do. It was so bad that the headmaster, Mr. Spears, he had to make an announcement at assembly and said, there will be no cultural bullying or intimidation in this school. I was scared. Louis was scared. It traumatized him. David had been traumatized because he's been fleeing for his life for 3.5 years. How do we respond? How do you guys respond when treated badly? And, we don't get beaten up every day with a belt buckle on the side of the head. We don't get intimidated by 10, 15 people every single day. We're not fearing for our life for 3.5 years. But what do we do when we're treated badly? Do we see blood? Do we go out on the warpath and seek revenge for those who have wronged us? Do we drown our sorrows, our humiliation, our hurt, our embarrassment in things that we hope will make us feel better? You see, because David and Louis, they thought, well, if I kill Nabal, I'm going to feel better about myself. I'm going to teach him a lesson. Louis, on the other hand, if I can kill the bird, he won't be in my dreams anymore. Do we act self-righteously by making ourselves or taking action that allows us to feel better while destroying somebody else's life? Or do we not do that? Do we turn to self-medication? Do we turn to food? food's going to make me feel better. A good dessert is going to just hit the spot, and I'm going to have that endorphin rush just for a moment. Do we turn to alcohol, pornography, scrolling endlessly? You know, the doom scrolling where it never ends, and it just goes on and on until you find something interesting to watch. Do we go shopping sprees, and before we've opened our eyes out, we've spent thousands of dollars on our credit card, and now we're like, oh, now what do I do? Do we overwork? Do we spend all our time in the office because we don't know how to handle our situations in life? Do we attempt to silence the hurt in our life to make ourselves feel worthy by doing these things, by eating, because eating makes us feel good? Alcohol helps us numb our senses. Going on to pornography allows us to enjoy ourselves again. Scrolling, we numb our senses. Do we do all these things because we're hurting inside and we feel that these things are calling us and helping us feel better? While David and Louis and us go on our war paths, there's someone who is calling out to us. Our ears will hear a voice behind us saying, "This is the way, walk therein." For David, it was Abigail. When you go home this afternoon, just go read the story in 1 Samuel 25. The Bible describes her in the following way. She was a woman of good understanding and beautiful in appearance. Nabal is described as a fool, but she has good understanding. Just something to the men here in church. Find a good woman. Find a woman who is God-fearing and has good understanding. And women, strive to be in God's power a good woman. If you can find, men, a good woman, God has blessed you. If you, ladies, can be a good woman, God is blessing you. Because a good woman can speak sense to a man who sees blood. Because Abigail's a good woman. Nabal is described as a fool. She's described as one who has good understanding. Nabal's servants tell her what's happening. So they don't go to Nabal. They don't go to Nabal and say, hey, David's out on the warpath. They go to the one who knows, has common sense. Abigail, someone's coming, and he's out for blood. Abigail responds to the problem immediately. She doesn't go to Nabal and say, what have you done? You're just ridiculous. Why did you do that? No, she takes matters into her own hands. She prepares a feast. She prepares what is needed. 1 Samuel 25 says the following. When she meets David, it's the first time we hear of God in this particular story. She says, please let not my Lord, in other words David, regard this scoundrel Nabal. For his name is so, he is so. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. She says, do not overreact for the way this fool has treated you. And then she goes on in verse 26, now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives and saves your lives, since the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hand, now then let your enemy and those who seek harm for my Lord be as Nabal. So Abigail says to David, don't overreact against a fool. And how often do we do that? Somebody says something so outrageous, we see blood, we're out, we're going to get him, and we're overreacting. This is David. And Abigail says, calm down. She says, let God bring you back from bloodshed. This is God speaking to David, saying, calm down. But not only is she calming him down, but she's saving David from destroying his future career as a king. Can you imagine what it would have been like if David had ascended the throne and on his character was he had killed Nabal in cold blood because Nabal would not give him food? Israel would have served David out of fear. And so she saves his future career by saying, God is speaking to you. Don't act this way. Abigail sees David's hurt and pain. In Exodus 3 verse 7, which says, and the Lord says, I have surely seen their oppression. In other words, Israel's oppression while in Egypt. My people are in Egypt. I have heard their cry because their taskmasters, I know their sorrows. God knows what you and I are going through. God knew what David was going through. God knew what Louis was going through. If you're going through a hard time, God knows. And at the same time as God knowing, God is speaking. His voice is being heard by us. The question is, will we listen to the direction He's calling us to go into? Louis is on a warpath. He cannot sleep. He's passing out because of alcohol. His marriage is being destroyed. His wife Cynthia leaves him for a time. It's so bad that his baby girl is like a treasure to him. And it's so bad that Cynthia goes out the house one day and Louis is left alone, and she comes back home and Louis has the child. The child is screaming and he's shaking her. He's so overwhelmed with the past and the torture. His life is in absolute tatters. They get back together after Cynthia leaves. They get back together, but the bird is still destroying. Every time he goes to sleep, the bird is in his dreams. Do you guys have recurring dreams? Anybody have recurring dreams? I don't have recurring dreams. But can you imagine having recurring dreams? For 4 years, the bird is in his dreams. Then in 1949, Cynthia goes to a revival series down in Southern California. Billy Graham is speaking. She finds peace, a peace that she has never had. So she asks Louis to go one night with her. And he's like, no. Reluctant. Eventually he goes, and she kind of, I don't know what she does. I don't know if she lied, whether she exaggerated a little bit about what was going on, but Louis liked science. She says that he speaks about science. And like Louis, okay, let's go. So he goes reluctantly. Can you see God speaking to Louis? Can you see Cynthia's Abigail? Softly she calls him. There's something that you need to hear. He called Louis and he calls us. At first, Louis is dismissive of God. You know what it's like. Your parents come to you, your wife comes and speaks to you, your husband comes and speaks to you, and you know the counsel they're giving you is right, but you turn stubborn. You know what I'm talking about? Who are you to tell me I must do this? You're just as bad. And then you bring out the laundry list that's as long as a mile. Well, you do this and you do that, and why must this is all you? This is my only problem, and yours is a mile long. I think that this is kind of Louis' initial response is like, Who are you to tell me? Cynthia asks again if Louis would go to another meeting. He says, okay, I'll go. But we will leave the moment Billy Graham starts his altar call prayer. When he says, stand up, let's pray in closing, we will leave. And so the moment that happens, Louis gets up, grabs Cynthia's hand, and they're walking from the edge of, I guess from the middle of the block where they were sitting. They're walking to the aisle. They're about to turn up to go out of the tent and the meeting place where they're at. And Louis stops. He looks down to the podium. He looks to the door. He looks and he sees the canvas tent and the sawdust, and he stops. At that moment, he remembers a promise. You see, Louis was a bombardier that flew B-24s. And they were flying this horrible plane that should have never have been flown because it was not airworthy, but their sergeant told them, you will fly on this mission. The plane goes down somewhere, I don't know, out there in the ocean somewhere. They are stranded for 33 days in a raft on the ocean. Louis says that the moment the raft was blown up and whatever, they were circled by sharks every single day. I don't know about you, but I don't like sharks too much. I love the beach. I love it. I grew up going and swimming. The smell of coconut suntan lotion just takes me back to my childhood days, being on the beach, tanning yourself brown. I mean, it was just the best. Barbecues every single day for lunch. We would go to the beach 9 o'clock in the morning. We'd stay there till 12. My dad would leave before that. He would start the fire, barbecue chicken, and it is actually a bride chicken every day for lunch, salad. We'd spend an hour or two at home for lunch. Then in the afternoon, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd go back to the beach till like 5 o'clock. That was 1 week summer vacation for us, every single day. Coconut suntan lotion. Brings back memories. But I never thought about sharks. Never. Until in college days, I learned about great whites breaching the sea in False Bay in Cape Town. And then I'm like, oh, the sea has sharks? Oh, that's not good. And so then every time I would swim thereafter, I would imagine sometimes diving through the waves and then diving straight into a shark's mouth. I still love the beach. But they were circled by sharks. And sometimes Satan circles us. Satan circled Louis with the bird. David was being circled by Satan through Saul and through Nabal. Satan circles us, and he will rub right up against us. He says, Louis would say on the raft. I mean, how thick is an inflatable raft? No, it's like the thickness of your jacket. The fins of the shark would scrape up against the raft. They would swim underneath the raft and bump them. 33 days they're on this raft, being shot at by enemy planes. You guys know of the doldrums? Have you learned that? I learned about it in this place in the ocean where there's no waves, no currents, and very, very little wind. They entered the doldrums on this raft. It was so bad that the raft started to disintegrate, and it gave off a smell, and it was just horrible. They had no cover for themselves. They had no water. And there Louis looks in the doldrums in the night sky, and he sees the stars. He sees the ocean. And he says, there must be a God. And he prays and he says, God, If you get me out of this, I will serve you the rest of my life. A few days later, it rains and they have some water, which they had not had in days. But there in that tent, sawdust on the floor, Billy is about to pray. He's about to walk out the back. He remembers that promise. He lets go of his wife's hand and he walks down to the front. And there in the front, he made a full surrender. He gave it up. No more bargaining. How often do we bargain with God? That night, the following happened. His alcoholism left him that night. His hatred for his captors, and he had gone through about 200 prison guards. His hatred for those prison guards, gone. His death wish for the bird, gone. He says the next morning when he woke up, everything was different. Because Abigail, because Cynthia, because they were used by God to speak the word of God to somebody who saw blood. God speaks to us today. He's speaking to you in this sermon. The baggage you carry, the hurt you bear, the vindictive nature you have towards somebody for what they've done for you, your animosity towards your boss, your hatred of yourself because of what you've done to yourself. God says, I can free you from that. I can free you from your addiction. I can free you from your self-medicated means of getting through life. I can free you from that. God says that to you today. Friends, I want to tell you that everything can be different. You can be freed from your self-medicated addictions. God speaks to all of us today through the story of Louis, through the story of David and Nabal and Abigail. And He wants us to make a full surrender. He wants to make everything in our life different. The question is, are we listening? Are we listening, or are we looking at the clock and it's like, man, I'm hungry. When's he going to sit down? What are we scared of? What are we scared to give up? Who are we fighting in our head? Are we fighting ourselves? Are we hating ourselves? Are we hating someone else? What is the coping mechanism that we have baptized as normal and the means of numbing and saving us? Maybe we've baptized politics. That will be our saving grace. Maybe we've baptized TV or social media or friends or sports, and maybe we've said, that will be my saving grace. That will give me something to focus on other than the hatred and the dislike I have for myself because of what has happened to me in the past. Maybe, and hear me correctly when I say this, maybe church has become our baptized saving grace. Because coming to church, being here, is not going to give you peace. The only one that will give peace and make everything different is Jesus. If we're here for any other reason other than Jesus, we're not going to get peace. So how do you surrender? You can't stick up a white flag in your heart. I come in peace. How do we surrender? How do we take back the hurt? How do we take back that which is stolen? How do we take back our peace? How do we take back our dignity, our future? How do we do what David did and what Louis did? And how do we receive that which God desires for us? Have you ever wondered about your hand? Look at your hand. Right? What do we hold dear in our hand? What do you hold? Your job? Is that your security? Your family? What is your weapon of choice? Words? Vindictive words? Gossip? Backstabbing? What we have in our hand, if you please, is who we are. A closed hand, a clenched hand, is a hand of aggression, a hand of stress, a hand of worry, a hand of pent up. If you're going to go fight, you're going to go fight ready. Right, Gary? You're not going to stand with open hands. No, I'm ready to fight. What are you fighting with in your hand? I want you to take your hand and I want you to close it, put it on your leg like such. You're sitting, I'm standing. And I want you to think about what's in your hand. What sword are you fighting your life with? And then I want you to open your hand. And say, God, this is my sword. Take it from me. An open hand is a sign of humility. An open hand is a sign of surrender. Amen. An open hand is saying, God, I have nothing to offer. I can't fight in my own strength. I can't fight with the sword of social media. I can't fight with the sword of alcoholism, pornography, work, family, doom scrolling. I can't fight with those because the more I fight with that, the emptier I feel. And so God, here's my social media. Here's my alcohol. Here's my pornography. Here's my TV. Here's my work. Here's what I have fought with. I surrender. That's what David did. He strapped on his sword, but when he met Abigail, he surrendered. When Louis met God that night in the tent, he opened his hands and he said, God, here is my hatred. Take it. So this week, I want you to, when you're sitting at your desk and you're writing, or you're bored with your teachers, think about or you're never bored with your teachers. That's right. Teachers are always engaging. When you're sitting at your desk and you think about that person who has given you a hard time and your teacher who's giving you a hard time, I want you to look at your hand and open it up. Teachers, when you see that student walk into your class that's like, man, he's here again. Oh, my days. Couldn't you have called in sick? Do not grab the baseball bat of grades. Say, God, I relinquish this student to you. when you're at office, when you're at home, when your husband and your wife has done that to you once more, when your boss has ridiculed you once more unreasonably, look at your hand and say, God, I give it to you. Surrender your life to Him. Open your hand this week and give up whatever you are fighting with. Spend time with God each and every day, asking God, what am I running from? What hurt am I running from? And to where are you calling me? We know the history of David and the great work that he did. But Louis, God had called him to a ministry of reconciliation, of helping young, troubled people, of seeking peace with his prison captives. I was held in prison. No, not genuine prison, but I was held in prison by a kid who bullied me for many years at school. And I wondered, what would I do with him if I saw him after school? Oh, I wanted to sock that kid one solid shot in the face and just tell him what was. So I met Warren many years after I'd known him in elementary school, gone through high school, gone through college, and here was this skinny little runt once again. Oh, I wanted to punch the daylights out of him. I was already a minister working at a summer camp, and I wanted to have at this guy. Thank you, Adam. Thank you.
I said we're all
We're all human. We're all human. So we sat down in the dining room at a place called Mapani Lodge in South Africa. He told me his story. I let go of my hatred for him. And today I still wonder where he is in life. Smoking and drinking by the time he was still in elementary school. Involved in drugs and whatnot through his life. But he eventually gave himself to Christ. He had given up whatever he was fighting with, and he gave his life to Christ. God is calling you today. God is speaking to you from behind, saying, this is the way to go. Walk therein. I pray this morning that God will bless you as you listen to His voice, that you would walk within His path, that you would open up your hand and give up what you're fighting for.